flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beverly, if you would record the attendance, please.
Board President, all board members are present.
Thank you very much, Beverly. That gets us to item 4, the adoption of the agenda. You should have received the agenda for tonight's meeting, October 26, 2020, as well as the minutes of the meeting for September 28, 2020, and the financial statements for September of 2020. All these are for your consideration for approval. Is there a desire from anyone to have these read in their entirety, or are there any comments or questions? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve in a second.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adoption? Aye. And that passes unanimously. This gets us to item 5, Panther Pride, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Cofield.
Yes, we don't have any formal recognitions, but there are several things that I want to call to everyone's attention. Marla, am I good with my sound? Okay. Just let me know up or down if I need to, whatever. So a couple of things I want to bring to everyone's attention. We're proud of the middle school. For the second year in a row, they've received a literacy grant. I know Ms. Wallace works very hard at the middle school to buy more books. They're bilingual, biographies, fiction books, and some other things. She's always working hard, and again, she's able to come up with a grant. I want to discuss niche. Niche is one of those outside school ranking things that sometimes I think aren't exactly what they should be, but we will certainly take it when we get it. And we're blessed to be recognized as one of the top 25 school districts in Alabama, ranked number 12. That's certainly a lot of people working very hard in a lot of areas, and some of the things that they recognize, and that is a big deal. It's a big deal because niche is one of the most looked after things for people on real estate websites and those kinds of things. It is a frequently mentioned data source, and so we are flattered to be recognized as the number 12 school district in the state. I want to just talk about some of the fall successes we've had. I noticed another high school was shutting down for a couple of weeks because of some COVID, and we've just last Friday night, our kids were, although it was an abbreviated version and not everything we've always wanted to do, but able to have homecoming and have a pep rally. And our volleyball team just completed another successful year where they won an area championship. Our football team has won an area championship. Our band has done a great job. Lots of kids competing our cross-country track. So when we started all this, I was really just hoping we'd take it week by week. And I just want to mention all the kids who have been participating, even at the middle school level. A lot of pride there. We are looking forward to just letting you know in the November meeting, we'll probably have a special called work session in the morning, so we can do a lot of special recognitions. Big auditorium, we have lots of kids that are going to be recognized and some other things. We're really looking forward to that. It's a little difficult here, the smaller setting and with some of the social distancing rules. So looking forward to recognizing a lot of people at our November meeting, a special call meeting in the morning. We'll be able to do that. Moving on to personnel recommendations. There are 4 recommendations that are in front of you tonight. Item number 1 is the retirement of our central office accounts payable bookkeeper, Ms. Bridget Hand. Bridget's done an exceptional job for us. She came to us and worked at the high school for a few years. We're proud for her. We're sorry to lose her, but she's going to be retiring soon. And also, items 2 and 3 are some part-time agreements. Our elementary schools use some Title I funds to pay some retired teachers come and work and do intervention. And then item 4 is the voluntary transfer of a CMP worker from Pelham Oaks over to Pelham High School. And you can see all the proper documentation where this is a voluntary move by this employee and accepted by the CMP manager. So 4 recommendations in front of you regarding personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Cofield. We do have a superintendent's recommendations. We'll entertain a motion to approve in a second on these 4 items.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, we're under discussion.
I have a question,
Yes.
concerning, the transfer of the CMP worker. Is there someone else who's taking your place then at the elementary school?
Are we posting that, Patrick?
We're not, at this time right now, we are not.
You know, one of the things as we had CNP staff roll over from one year to the next year, and with the reduced number of kids who are attending, we've been able to, if there's situations like this, possibly get by the rest of the year without filling those positions. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? On behalf of the board, I would like to echo what Dr. Cofield said. I really want to thank Bridget for all her hard work here, for our school system, and wish her the very best in her retirement. She's a great lady and really has done a great job for us. With that in mind, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of those 4 items as they've been stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously as well.
On to new business, we have 6 items under new business. 5 of those I'm asking for a vote. 6th item will be a discussion. However, item number 1 is approved supplements for mentors. There's a list of about 20 to 25 teachers on this list who are serving as mentors. Novice teachers who are first year to the profession, the difference in these amounts, there's a state stipend for that, so those mentors receive $1,100. We supplement a little bit more of that, and then the other mentors that you see that are a lesser amount are the ones who are mentoring people who are new to our system. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, new to our system and not new to.
New to our system, but not new to teaching. So this is another way, of course, with our compensation that we've tried to increase some of our teachers' abilities. So this is, we need to go there. We have a lot of other things we'll approve later in the year once clubs and those kind of things get more settled, but we need to go ahead and get these mentor things because the State Department needs verification and some other things related to payroll. So item 1 is for you to approve those supplements. Item 2, 3, and 4 all are relative to mental health services in our school system. I am recommending the termination of the contract with Central Alabama Wellness, and in its place, for you to approve the contract of Carter Counseling Services, and item 4 to approve the contract with Croswell Counseling Services. We think this move will provide us a little more stability in our staffing, a little more experience, and these actions are to provide a little more stability in our mental health services. So items 2, 3, and 4 are all related to improving mental health services for our students. Item number 5 is to approve a supplemental grocery bid awarded through the Central Alabama Consortium. Being a smaller school system, Patrick goes in, several school systems go in together to get a better pricing on groceries. That's what this is, and so you're approving this bid, we get better pricing on some of our food. So items 1 through 5 are to you for a recommendation for approval.
Okay, very good. Does anyone have a need to have any clarification on any of those 5 items before we go further with this, or any questions?
I have some questions.
So we're going to terminate the contract with Central Alabama and we're replacing it with 2 different services.
Yes.
What sort of does that put more cost burden on us?
No, it will be at the same cost that we were paying last year. They have agreed to provide. The reason is these are both independent mental health providers, and so while actually they have and our attorneys, there's contracts in here, our attorneys have reviewed the contract and approved them. The reason we're doing it in 2 is because they're 2 different LLCs, and so we really need 2 different contracts. So these are local independent providers here that are located here in Pelham, so accessibility, we've said this is what we're willing to pay. They can provide those services at cost. So.
All right, any other questions or need for clarification? Anybody want to pull any of these items to be voted on separately?
I'm just curious, you
probably already talked about.
Before, but, how many counselors, are available to us through this, to,
When we go to the new contract, there will be, both, Carter is a person and Croswell is a person. So we will have two full-time people accessible at all times. One of those will concentrate on the elementary level, the other one will concentrate at the secondary level. Plus, we have our mental health coordinator, Allison. Allison's new, got me with Allison's last name. Anna Nicholson. I'm sorry, Anna, if you're listening out there, but you are brand new. But anyway, Anna is here as our mental health coordinator. So where in the past, we've kind of struggled to have one or two. Now, because we wrote the grant for the State Department and we're awarded that for Anna Nicholson. She is here full-time and our employee. And now we have two contracted mental health workers. So now we have three people, one who is our employee coordinating all of that. So now basically we have three people have boots on the ground ready to serve our kids. I don't think at any time last year we ever had three people. So.
All right, if there's no need for any further clarification, I'll entertain a motion to approve it second.
I'll make a motion, we approve items 1 through 5.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're under any further discussion. I have a couple of comments with regard to the mentors. I think it's really important to underscore how important that is to our school system. If you look at any great school system, one of the hallmarks of it is nurturing and collaboration. And I think our people do a great job of that. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've seen our test scores improve like they have. And I think it's important to say that. It's also a way that not only are we able to increase salaries, but we're able to do it based on merit. Because it's only right to compensate people that are willing to share their knowledge with others that are new to the system or new to teaching. And so I think that's one of the really great things that we do as a system. As far as the wellness situation, my understanding is that basically we were having a hard time getting staff, and the two new agencies that we're going to deal with, we've dealt with those people before.
Yes, we do have a past experience with those workers.
And not only will we get better staff, we'll probably get more experience in people that understand this. So it looks like a win-win for us. Okay. Any other comments? All right, let's call for the vote then. All those in favor of items 1 through 5, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those 5 items pass as well.
Item 6 is to review rezoning plan for next school year, 2021 and 2022. Board members, I put on your table, and we're gonna look at, we've got an orange and green map, and, but let's look, put this little chart on your table. Let's look at, this first. And, we'll go through this, and as we need to call on Floyd to assist with questioning, he has worked with me on this project. So first, let's just talk about our history of the school system. Of course, Pelham Ridge and Pelham Oaks were established in 2016-17. I'm up at the top as 2 K-5 schools, and as we became a school system, that's one of the things that we talked about, that if you do 2 K-5 schools, there would be times when, as you grow as a city, that you would have to rezone. After our first 2 years, we rezoned in 2018 and 19. I look back on our notes, and I think we finally selected Plan K, which means that A, B, C, D, E, F, G all were considered. I don't know how many went after K, but I do know that we selected Plan K when we rezoned the first time, and that was a process that was very difficult, but I think that it wound up being very successful. Our schools are very similar in many, many ways. That's what we're trying to get to. Here we are 3 years later, and we are proposing another rezoning for next school year. So tonight is the first time that you are seeing this information as a board. So just know, as we're going through this, we're not asking you to vote on this tonight. This is information for you to review. review, and as board members, as we work through the next month, November, December, possibly January, we'll come back and to approve this at some point in time. Because we also have to work on the communications to the community and letting them know all those kinds of things. But this rezoning does coincide with the new classroom additions that are being built at Pelham Oaks and will be ready for next school year. So I've just given you the last 3 years of data related to Pelham Oaks and Pelham Ridge. If you just look, let's just look at the enrollment at Pelham Oaks in 18-19, they had 651, 658, 665. So we've seen a little bit of growth there. At Pelham Ridge, actually in the last 3 years, it's 865, 845, and 844. Now, there's a lot of things that can go into play there. You never know that first year, did they have a huge fifth? I didn't go back and look at it in that much detail, but a lot of times, almost every school has one grade level that's huge, one that's small, those kinds of things. So there may have been some dynamics. So I do show you a 3-year trend to show you that there is not one school that's just boom, growing like mad, and the other one's not. So we've seen, I think last week I shared with you over the last 5 years, we've grown 12.5%. So we've seen pretty consistent growth throughout our school system. So anyway, rezoning, look at the bottom, that chart, capacity. Capacity, what is the capacity of the school? Well, depends on who you ask and by what methods you're using, and there's lots of other things that go into that. For instance, how many teachers per number of kids in a classroom, right? The lower your class sizes, guess what? The more classrooms you need, the less capacity that you have. So all this is relative to, lots of different things, but, and I will, if you had math class in high school, you have to do more than give the answer, you have to show your work, and I can show you my work later on to show you how I got to these numbers, but I think that the capacity at Pelham Oaks with the new addition next year is gonna be somewhere between 825 and 875 students, ballpark. And so that's the reason I have 850 down there below that. Pelham Ridge, somewhere between 800 and 850. Now, we have had more than 850 students last couple of years at Pelham Ridge, but there are also classrooms that were designed as There are classrooms at Pelham Ridge that were designed for one thing that within a year or two, we were using as classrooms. That were really never intended to be classrooms. They were intended to be multi-purpose places for speakers, different activities and these kinds of things. We've been putting people in big storage closets as offices, those kinds of things. So really and truly, the capacity there is probably about 825, somewhere between 800 and 850. I think we've had close to 880 in that building a couple of years ago. So can you get them in there? Yes. It's just that all of a sudden the things that you design a school for don't necessarily turn into that. So if we just look at Pelham Oaks with a capacity of 850, our current enrollment right now today at Pelham Oaks is 664. You see that in the red. So once those classrooms are finished for next school year, if we kept 664 kids, you see the capacity of that school would be at 78%. Okay? If we kept the number of students at Pelham Ridge that are there right now, then that number is at and boy, I guess it's part of a lot. So this is not fade to black on your screens at home. I learned that in cinematography at Auburn University. I took that class. Fade to black. Someone treated me earlier. So 844 at Pelham Ridge. So really, they're at capacity right now, about 102%. Can we get them in there? Yes. Okay, that's where we are currently. What I asked Floyd to do, and y'all know Floyd's got the machine that he punches the buttons and moves the lines, and it tells us, as he moves the lines for different subdivisions, it'll pop up and show how many kids are moving. So I went to Floyd probably last year and said, find me 100 kids. Now, that's impossible to say, find me this number of kids, and you pull subdivisions and it hits that many kids. But you have to start somewhere. And the rationale for looking at that, you see highlighted in yellow, if we move 100 kids, Then basically in Oaks from 664, it goes to 764, and they would be at 90% capacity. If you subtract 100 kids out of Pelham Ridge and they went down to 744, they would be at 90% capacity. So in a perfect world, if we got 100 kids moved in our zoning change, we would be at 90% capacity in both buildings. We can, again, this was before we ever started looking at, I was just looking at numbers and what would be a good fit. You can play with other numbers. If you were to move 150, all of a sudden Oaks is about 96%, Ridge is about 84. We can get into all kind of conversations about what subdivisions are coming in and what growth. I get that. But I also have to go look at the last 3 years and say that both schools, one school, actually Pelham Oaks has grown a little bit more than Pelham Ridge. There may be other reasons behind that. We also know there are certain places of the cities where new subdivisions are coming in. But right now, if you moved 100 kids, you would be at 90% capacity. You could possibly move up to 150. Oaks would be at 96. Pelham Ridge would be at 84. I get to be very, very uncomfortable if you get to move around, because if you move around 200 kids, then all of a sudden you've just created a dynamic at Pelham Oaks where right off the bat, we're maxed out at 102%. You'd have the reverse if you did nothing. Oaks would now be at 102%, and Pelham Ridge was 78. So those were the numbers that we began with to try and look at rezoning. So anyway, Floyd starts punching buttons and moving things and looking for neighborhoods. And we had an idea when we planned for our first zoning, we had an idea already that what would be the natural next step. Of course, that was how many years ago? 2016. That was 6 years ago. You don't know how things change. But you can see at the bottom of that page, when Floyd started maneuvering things around and looking at different things, you are seeing that, and this sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, that when he pulled these subdivisions, Creekside, Holland Lakes, Ivy Brook, King Valley, and Brookshire, when we pulled those subdivisions, that would impact 103 kids. Okay, which is almost dead on target to the number that we were looking at. Okay, on the second page of this document, you can see that if we look at just the students in Creekside, Holland Lakes, Ivy Brook, King Valley, and Brookshire, that's 103 kids. You have a demographic breakdown of who those students are related to poverty and non-poverty, ethnicity, bus riders, car riders, male and female. And so looking at those numbers, there is nothing there that really doesn't kind of fit. It will be a move that is very similar to our current student demographics, and it doesn't create any kind of considerable change in either one of the schools. Okay? And so, board members, if you ever want to try to dig a little deeper in the numbers, you can always take these numbers and look back on the first page, because on the first page, you've got the 2020-21 data of what the schools look like in regards to poverty, non-poverty, ethnicity, all those kinds of things. So you have all of that information. Moving on, the third page is really a repeat of what you just saw. Floyd does tables. I like Excel documents, but this was Floyd's original data. This is the communities. But on the next sheet, we were also looking at Stonehaven and Heather Ridge. Originally, we looked at an area. The reason my initial recommendations for your consideration, and we'll get into it, but my initial recommendations are Creekside, Holland Lakes, Brookshire, Ivy Brook, King Valley. Because if we were to add Stonehaven and Heather Ridge, you can see there are 117 students in those two subdivisions. So all of those are really kind of close, but if we took them all, we'd have 220. And now I've created a problem at Pelham Oaks by doing that. So before we move on and I show you my work related to all the math, you do have a map. Okay, so if you, and Floyd, if I misspeak, jump in and correct me, okay? So if you hold this in portrait fashion, not the portrait straight up and down, and from the bottom, of course, the red line in the middle is 31, is Pelham Parkway until it hits a hard left, and that's 52. The green is currently Pelham Oaks, and the orange is currently Pelham Ridge. But in the red outline are the subdivisions that we talked about on the front of that. Those are the subdivisions of Creekside, Holland Lake, Ivy Brook, and King Valley. So that is where those 103 students would be pulled from. On the backside of that orange, where you see Stonehaven and Heather Ridge, there are 117 students. So, you know, it would have been really nice if we could have just gone in there, because these areas are very similar. Now, I will tell you, from this area, whether you're going to Pelham Ridge or Pelham Oaks is very similar as far as distance and travel time. And if you're going to Pelham Ridge, you go on the 31, you hang a right, then you're gonna take a left on 68. TJ, you're gonna go over, you're gonna hit Pelham Ridge. If you're going to Oaks, you take a left on 31, you go up to Home Depot, take a right, you go to Pelham Oaks. So they're very similar. But they're also very close. It would have been nice if we could have just gone in and said, okay, let's just take this area, but then I've got 220 kids as opposed to 103. So I'm going to stop there before I get into the messy part about the math and building capacity, because I really probably going to zone out at that time. But that's the gist. Those are the highlights of how many kids, where we think the good balance is, how it balances the schools related to facility capacity. Not asking you to vote on this tonight. We're rolling this out for the first time. Do you have any initial questions for me and Floyd? I also understand over the next few days or weeks, you may come up with more related to this. Any questions? Floyd, did I misrepresent anything?
You sure you don't want to talk about the square footages of the buildings?
I'm not sure I want to.
You sure you want to leave that off?
No, I'm gonna go to that.
Okay.
I thought this was a good stopping point before we get into the other stuff.
This was the configuration that made sense from numbers and all that.
Yes. And, you know, we can, you know, if the board members have any other suggestions later on that you'd like to say, if y'all thought about this, we can certainly look at it. But, you know, what I found is we did so much homework. What year was it? 2016, when we did this, because we had all these plans and we run all these numbers that we really kind of knew back when we did the first zoning. We thought we knew which area would be next. And we always kind of knew that south of 52 on the western side of 31 was going to be our next geographic place that made sense. So really, a lot of the homework that we had done was 6 years ago. But we had to go back and just look at the numbers to see if the numbers worked. But I will tell you, where we had multiple plans the last time, this one, you know, when I said I need 100 kids for it, or somewhere close to it, he pulls the data, we look at it, we have a conversation. Okay, well, can we include this or that? Well, also your numbers go up. So also from a I think a bus route and what buses go on certain roads, I think this also makes sense as well. So that is for your consideration. And again, we have not planned out yet. If you'll remember, the first time that we did the rezoning, we had a public meeting where we allowed anybody, you know, we put it up on a screen at Pelham Oaks Elementary School. I think we had that meeting. and allowing people to ask questions. We can certainly do that again. I'll probably need to do that again, although public meetings are a little more difficult with COVID, but we can set it up maybe at the high school where we can spread out and do that. So we have not scheduled that yet, because this is even the first time that you've even had to look at it. So I would like to slow play it a little bit to see in the next day or two if you have any feedback that you'd like to provide us, to see if we need to massage or maneuver anything before we get ready for a public meeting. Words are hard. Public meeting, or we can describe this more in detail or answer any of the public's questions. Going back to this document, here is a comparison. If you were to go back to this stapled document, about halfway through it, I have a chart that looks like this, board members. Just so you know, the two schools now, once we finish the renovations of Pelham Oaks, and not only that, not the renovations, the new additions, because over the last couple of years, we've been doing renovations at Pelham Oaks. They both have the entrances, what we call the collapsing perimeters from a safety perspective. We've updated that at Pelham Oaks. Those two schools have the same safety features now. The dining areas, both very, very similar. Over 5,200 square feet, between 5,200 and 5,400 square feet. The only difference is Pelham Oaks, it has a cafetorium where they have their little stage in the cafeteria, where Pelham Ridge has a gymatorium where their little stage is in the gym. And from a design standpoint, you either do that in the cafeteria or you do that in the gym. So they're a little different there. But related to administrative spaces, counseling offices, everything is very similar. In the new wing at Pelham Oaks, we're also doing a multi-handicap space. We have kind of a state-of-the-art design at Pelham Ridge. In this new wing at Pelham Oaks, it'll also have a state-of-the-art special needs area as well. There are 2 more classrooms at Pelham Oaks, 44 at Pelham Ridge, 46. So anyway, by almost any measure now, as you go look at these schools, they're basically very, very similar in their functioning and their space. Even when we built Pelham Ridge and we met with teachers to design classrooms, great for me, because they all said, we want the same design as Pelham Oaks. So even the classrooms at both schools are designed identically in their design. So that is just information for you related to the schools. All right, so I'm gonna walk through the math with just one example, and if you want to look at all this other stuff, but I do want you to feel comfortable about capacity and how we determine the capacity of a school, because that's really critical, because you don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to come out and say, we're rezoning and we're building classrooms because we anticipate the capacity. I mean, that's kind of a key question. So let's just take Pelham Oaks, and this is the one that has all the numbers, all the little bitty numbers on it. And I'm just going to do one, and instead of go through all of these, but let's just take the middle column in Pelham Oaks. And this is projecting a school with ADM as average daily membership. That's 820 kids. And so 820 divided by 6 is 135 kids in a classroom. So every grade has 135 kids. And y'all know that never happens, but this is just giving you an example, right? So in kindergarten, there are 135 students. You see that in the outline box. Go over to under FTE. Well, I would need 8 teachers if there was a class size of 17. For 7 teachers, it would be a class size of 19. So we need 8 rooms for kindergarten. See how that works? So you're kind of determining how many classrooms. And here's the thing. Personnel drives all your capacity issues. If we were to come in and say, we don't want any kindergarten classrooms larger than 16, guess what? We just added classrooms. That impacts our capacity. So, all these capacity numbers were designed off this model, which is the current model that we use related to staffing. First grade, same thing, 17 or 19, bumped it up to 19, so you need 7 classrooms. Second grade, 7 classrooms again for a class size of 19. Third grade, you want 19 kids, you want 23 kids, did 19 kids, you need 7 classrooms. Fourth grade, 5 classrooms to have a class size of 27. And now you're getting all up there close to that's where we would probably be. It would be 5, again, 5 and 5th grade. You need a music and an art classroom. You need probably 4 classrooms for ELL or intervention of some sort. Or even if you want to make a couple of classes smaller. Classroom for gifted, special ed, you need 1.5. A lot of the times, special ed teachers share rooms. If they're working with small groups, or you're self-contained or behavioral units, you need 2 classrooms. Speech needs a half of the classroom. Pre-K, you need 1. Computer lab, you need a small place for an instructional coach. Guess what? Total rooms being used, 51.5. We have 52 classrooms available over there. And so that is with a enrollment of 820, and we're almost capped out. And so, and I told you in the beginning, kind of anywhere between 825 to 875, and I said 850. Well, that's using an example of 820. So if you're a big numbers nerd like I am, and you want to go look at every year for each school, Oaks, Ridge, I've laid out 3 different models for you to kind of show you how we came up with that capacity. So, do know that if we ever came in and said, we want class sizes to be no greater than 16 in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, that impacts your capacity. So, but our class sizes are good. I want to thank Floyd for helping me work with that and making, I have no idea how to make these things work. That's all Floyd in a computer and a special software program. But it's really nice. We can maneuver that line around and we can pull that information. So give that some thought, board members, before we set a public hearing or public meeting where we roll that out to the public, although it's being rolled out now. But you need to be the first one to see that and to have some input on that, and we will work on scheduling a meeting with the community so we can get any input or feedback to make sure that we've not missed anything. Okay?
I have one question.
Absolutely.
What is the sweet spot as far as percent capacity of a school? Because I know you don't want empty classrooms, but then you don't want to, when I hear 90% capacity at most schools, it makes me go.
Yeah.
But I know that has to do with class size, but just like what you're talking about on this chart. Is one of these set to a 90% capacity?
No, that was me probably a year ago, just plugging numbers. So I already had that database of information as we get there. So, Andy, that is a great question. But here are some things that, here are things that schools can do if they ever get to a full capacity. You can get into things where, there's a computer lab in there that we don't use. There's there's multi-purpose classrooms that aren't counted as classrooms. You can go in there and begin to get into some of those spaces. Again, we've had 880. I think weren't we at least at 880? We were at 880 at Pelham Ridge. So it is doable to push that, but it's not.
And your class size gets
Your class size gets larger because now, 3rd grade, also you're pushing 21, 22, and people saying, well, why can't we get another teacher for, 3rd grade? Well, truth is, we don't have, another room. So you begin, it impacts a lot of things that you don't want to impact. And I think it depends on the area. We've grown 12% in the last 5 years. So, I do think that, where we are now, and also remember, I really have no idea how COVID and moving forward, how many people remote learning, how many people are, moving forward, because we've actually had some elementary parents who have really liked remote learning. And I don't know from a school dynamics, is that going to be an option in the future? Is that going to impact our enrollment? So I think it's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer for it because I think it all depends. It depends on a lot of different things. But I do think based on our past growth that we should be in really good shape for 5 to 6 years before we have to start worrying about, school capacity. but it's an issue, and it's different. It's certainly different in Pelham than it is in certain rural areas of the state which haven't grown in 50 years or so. But I would say that I think this classroom addition to Pelham Oaks is, we're definitely addressing a need, and we're giving ourselves some wiggle room and some time to at least study the numbers and look. You know, we had the demographic study done when we started the school system, and the demographers did the, you know, here's where you're gonna be the low and where the high projections, and we're kind of on target to meet their high projections. Because I think they had projected in 10 years, and we didn't study in 14, so we're getting closer to that 10-year mark. I forget the number, but for some reason I remember it was like 264 kids per grade level, where we're already over 250 now. So a couple of years, depending on, again, how COVID changes schools moving forward, we were definitely on track to be at that, you know, high mark number. So high mark number. I will say this: after adding these classrooms at Oaks, 12 classrooms, both of these schools are now in the 850-something capacity. I do not think adding on more to those schools would ever be a good idea. I think an elementary school at 850 kids is plenty big enough, and if we ever get to that point, then I think it's time to start talking about something else. I don't think adding on to those schools would ever be a good idea. That's my opinion. So that is item number 6, to review that and get that ball rolling, and we will proceed accordingly. Any other questions before I just go on to the superintendent's report? All right, I'll give you a couple of updates. I'll give you an update on COVID. As you know, board members are trying to get you opportunities to get out and get as much information as possible. I know that we have, we met with, we went out and talked with the staffs at Pelham Park Middle School and Pelham High School a couple of weeks ago to listen to their input and their concerns and questions, and to try to get a better understanding from the teacher's perspective. I thought those meetings were outstanding. I learned a lot. I appreciate those that could attend. I appreciate you doing that. We also have on the 16th and 17th of November, a scheduled time for y'all to go out. I think you're going to be really impressed with just the amount of work and the procedures, just so you can put your eyes on how school operations have changed, and also to give you some one-on-one time with the principals or their team. I've asked Nurse Julie to make sure she's included on some of those, to give y'all a lot of time, just some time with them by yourselves, putting your eyes on the different stuff so that you can ask questions. I have already met with the elementary principals. I am meeting with the middle school and the high school tomorrow to, because we basically said, we're evaluating everything through the end of the month. Our goal is, if we're going to make any changes, to announce that to the public at the beginning of November, so that we can ask parents to make some choices for the second semester. We've already made some adjustments at the middle school, some of the things that we're doing, but we are in the process of meeting and evaluating and discussing and all those kinds of things to see exactly what our communications are going to be to the community at the 1st of November, so they have plenty of time to choose what they want to do the second semester. So that maybe we can get the information and the data back prior to Thanksgiving, and then we will spend December replanning for the second semester based on the percentage of kids who are choosing the different models that we roll out. I will say that I continue to be impressed with our ability, knock on wood, to control the virus. Maybe that's the wrong terminology, but just our numbers. Last week, we had 5 total positive cases, and we had 50 total quarantines. That was in week 8. Our highest numbers so far, in week 3, we had 12 people with COVID positive, and we had, in week 7, 88 quarantined. So we're still well below those numbers, and that's, I continue to be impressed. Not that we're do right all the time, but when I'm in the schools to see the kids and that they're wearing their masks, the teachers are wearing their masks, They're doing a really good job, and we've been able to keep our numbers relatively low, which has allowed some of these activities and events that kids make school to go on. So I'm continually impressed by that. I hope that we continue to see that. I was asked a really good question Friday about the numbers. And by the way, this is how we report the numbers. Everybody reports them differently, but when you see, when I put out that there are 5 COVID positive cases, that is a snapshot in time. On a Friday afternoon, I'm calling Nurse Julie after lunch, and I'm saying, what have you got going? You got any more that you're checking? Or am I okay to begin to run the numbers? And she'll say, run the numbers, or no, wait, I've got someone calling, I've got to go check. So we do a snapshot in time on a Friday afternoon. How many people do we have who are at that current time positive with COVID or quarantine? So most of the time, someone's going to be counted twice, right? If I were to come down with COVID today, then I would show up on our numbers on not only this Friday, but I would also show up on the next Friday, and I would come off the list 2 Fridays ago. So many times people are being counted twice because it is a snapshot in time on a Friday afternoon of what our numbers are. And so other people are doing it differently. The State Department is supposed to be putting out on the Department of Public Health their numbers. We'll see about that and how they report those. But we will probably, so that we have a consistent database, we will likely, no matter what they put out, continue to track ours in this manner. But that's kind of where we are with COVID. And again, we have work in front of us as we're going to roll out what our plans are for the second semester coming pretty soon, and I'll figure out a way to get that communication to y'all and see if y'all have any questions or concerns. Any questions about that from the board? I need to give you a facilities update. Last sheet of paper that's sitting on your desk is this document right here. All right, so if we're going to get anything done this summer and finished before the next school year, we have to start planning now. Because now is the time to engage with architects or other people that do this kind of work, so we can start planning and budgeting and be ready to roll this summer so it's ready for the next school year. What I printed is the last sheet of our budget, of our internal budget document. Some of this needs to be updated, but at the very top, let's just walk through it so you're comfortable where we are financially as we start looking at these projects. So you know that the board, I think, has made known your comfort level with keeping 2 months of reserves. So 2 months of reserves for us is $6,791,000. That's that top number. That is approximately 2 months of reserves. And Sarita, if I misspeak, you step in, okay? This document was created about a week ago. Sarita was up here at 9 o'clock last night when I was up here putting chairs out, finishing the financial statement. So you got an updated number this morning. We're at about 4 months of reserves, or around $14 million at this time. So that's a little more than you see that I had with 13 when we were guessing a couple weeks ago. So just know, if you want to circle that, that's now been updated. We had about 14.5 million when Sarita ran the numbers and we closed out the fiscal year. So we did, and we got very lucky because we had money saved to do the rooms, the classroom addition at Pelham. Then the state did the bond issue, which kind of paid for that. So we do have some flexibility right now to look at some capital projects or to put some money away for savings. So let's look at all the different projects, and just to kind of give you an update. This first little part is we've been holding money in capital projects for a couple of years, but we've been spending that. We have currently about $262,000 in capital projects. We've got about $3,000 left to pay on the central office. The road project, we've been using these funds to pay for the road project. We'll probably still need about $40,000 in fees and about $400,000 finishing that project, which means we'll be negative about 217 out of those funds that we'll have to move down to the bottom. I'm just kind of showing you different line items because I know we've talked about in the past. The state ETA funds, education and technology advancement funds, that comes from the state at the end of their fiscal year. We have about 186, that's showing up in the general fund balance, that 14.5 million, that money is actually up there. We paid for the two roofs, the roof at the high school that's over the gym that needed repairing, and the field house roof. We've renovated the girls' restrooms for the girls in soccer and track. And Floyd, we had an inspection. Those projects are basically finished.
Above ceiling was completed last week. That's
Okay,
right.
so the above ceiling inspection, which is one of the last things as you get close. So we feel really good about our design. What we've done is gone into that old field house, and we've created a way where the girls have restrooms and showers that we can close it off so that it's additional bathrooms when we have large events, football, soccer. So we've increased our capacity for restrooms at the ball field. So those things have been done with those funds. We got the state bond money, $4.1 million. Our bid for Pelham Oaks was 4.1, so we're 10% of the fees is 400,000. And then we're gonna need some money for furniture and equipment to go into that new school. So we'll probably wind up about $500,000 short with the state, with the bond funds. So all that floats down into our project money. We had originally budgeted $1.9 million for projects. So this is the list that we have created, working with our administrators and Floyd, that this is where we think we are, the projects that we want to start exploring cost and bringing you better estimates. And so tonight, we need to hear from you, or you review this tonight if you think of something tomorrow that you want us to put on the list. But we're at the point now, we're about to start planning and getting more firm pricing. All of these prices on the far left are guesses from me. So those things could be way off, okay? So please know, these are not firm prices, with the exception of a couple of things. So putting acoustical panels in our gyms, the noise level, that's an issue. You know, y'all actually had approved that last January in the meeting, and then COVID hit, and we got scared, and we just kind of stopped. We had no idea what the economic impact of that was going to be at the time. So we never got that done, but that's on our list.
That is the practice gym at the hospital.
Yes, that would be in there. Okay, Pelham Ridge, we're gonna go put down a slab for a basketball court over there. They currently do not have one. Pelham Oaks has an outdoor basketball court, so that's on our list. The classroom additions not covered by the state bond, so building the new school, all the things up top, so we're probably gonna be about $500,000 short by the time you pay for everything at Pelham Oaks. Not things that aren't covered by the state bond issue. We've got $578,000 there. Okay, we have for Pelham Park Middle School, irrigation and resodding. And so this was done when that school was built. It was a part of the general contractor to sod and irrigate that field. I wish I could redo that and pull that out separately, and we could have done that with the landscaping company, because I think we'd have got probably a little better quality work. When you throw it in the big package, the roofers may have been out there putting that irrigation in. I don't know. It's never worked like it's needed to work. That field gets a lot of use from our kids at PE, football practice, soccer practice. Whether we like it or not, if you ride by there on the weekend, there's gonna be somebody out there kicking field goals or doing, or, you know, running their dogs or something. And so, we probably, if we're going to make that a better surface, are probably going to have to reinvest and redo that sprinkler system and resod the middle of that field.
you know, I don't have the figures on this, but I really wish that we would get some information on what it would cost, over a 4 or 5 year period if we bit the bullet and put an artificial surface down as compared to what it is for grass. I don't know if that grass is ever gonna be right. It doesn't have, in my judgment, a very good subsurface at all. And with the traffic that's on there, it's gonna be tough for grass to ever really take hold, because that's used all the time. Not just by, the middle school, but by the city as well. And, if it's ever going to be as effective as I think we'd all like it to be, I think we ought to just look at that and just see.
We can do that. We can get you a cost analysis doing, you know, here's one level of improvement and here's another level of improvement.
And we considered in the future putting, lights out there and a track.
Yes,
Like,
that is something towards the bottom of the list, that is something that we have on the list to explore as well. Of course, you know, the concern with that, I think is absolutely worth looking at, lights and track, but then you get into the thing, well, that way we can host big events. Okay, what about the bathrooms? So, you know, you start moving in one direction, and then there's another cost associated with that, unless you start saying, okay, we're gonna, you know, get with the city and they open up the Parks and Rec for bathroom accessibility, so, or can we partner with Parks and Rec on some things, you know, so, but we can absolutely explore all those things, or are we gonna leave the middle school open so that people have access to the bathrooms? So you get all, you know, all these questions, so, you know, one improvement never stops at one improvement. It tends to lead to a second and a third and a fourth. But we can absolutely begin the process of getting numbers on that kind of stuff.
It could mitigate the numbers that, have to be out there at any given time, you know, between, the high school with track and field and soccer. It gets pretty crowded out there.
At the high school especially.
And then they have to adjust time for practices.
Well, and, you know, the other direction you could go with that, I mean, you could actually expand that and create more than one field down there, if you just wanted to get more space. I mean, fields are at such a premium income. But anyway, I think to get what it would cost to do those things, and look at a couple of different options, I think would be.
Got it.
Thank you.
Completing the road at Pelham High School, that's about 217, that's an estimate, that's just dropped down from above. By the way, I don't know if you've been up there, since they've got the sidewalk in the road, and you're not supposed to be driving on it that way, but if you cheated like me and maybe taking a little spin through there.
Well, I hate to say that. I like it so much I drove 3 times.
But it's going to be a major improvement, and remember, there's also lights as well, so. Floyd, that project is supposed to be completed by the end of this month. So by the end of this month, just so you know, our original plan was to fog spray from the end of the new pavement. New paving is going to be to make it connect to where the city paved the front, to make it all look pretty. Floyd came back to me and said they were concerned fog spraying this time of the year about it being able to stick or take hold or whatever word they used. So we swapped that out for them to go in and actually do some more. There were some more bad places in the road that we basically did a swap, and they're going to go in and tear that out and make the road better. So it's not going to look as pretty as I want it to now, but when the weather warms back up, we'll go back and fog spray, and we'll have a better surface all the way around. Did I describe that accurately?
Yes, don't forget, the traffic won't change until after.
And so we have planned it out. They're supposed to be through at the end of October, but from a communication standpoint, and we also have, we're going to have football playoff games at Pelham High School, because our team won the area, so we're going to be hosting the first 2 rounds. And it was going to be a nightmare to get everybody swapped in the middle of all that. because nobody would know what to do, and they were gonna have football, and it's just gonna be a mess. So we have decided to work with the contractor and our signage and all that kind of stuff. And from communications and everything, we're going to reverse that traffic the week after Thanksgiving. We're gonna work on all that, and the communications, and everybody gets mad, I'm gonna turn them over to the code. But that is the plan, and so the painting of the directional signs and all that will take place during the Thanksgiving holiday. That way, you know, we're not gonna change, and all of a sudden you show up, the lines are different and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to actually paint the directional signs over the Thanksgiving holidays when no one's there, so we're ready to roll after Thanksgiving. Okay? All right, so that's, to my knowledge, the road project that we've been working on for a long time now. Moving on, renovations, other renovations we have on the list, the train system control update, that is just a management system, air conditioning, be able to control air conditioning and all that. That's about all I know about that, Floyd.
That's correct.
Okay. Signage. As we reverse the road and our main entrance is gonna be at that bottom entrance, we have worked with a company, we have an estimate to install a sign at the bottom of the road and also directional signage inside of the campus, you know, on the roads. Because it's gonna be a ride around, so we're gonna give them some pretty signs to look at, tell them which direction to go and where to turn and all that kind of stuff. So we're working on that. I will say that, and I'm looking at our folks, so the signage inside the campus, we should have done prior to the change. The big sign at the bottom may be a little longer before we get it done. But it will all be nice. Okay, while we're doing that, next on the list, Pelham High School fence repair and dumpster enclosures. So as we make that pretty drive around Pelham High School, we're fixed to identify, around that stadium in particular, there are places where you have rusted fence and fence that's leaning over, and there are dumpsters that are sitting out. Now's the time to clean all that up, fix all the fencing. We're gonna work with our architects to find places to hide our dumpsters and close them and make things look pretty and nice as we drive around that campus. The band tower, you know, the band tower is in the parking lot. We're going to have to take that out, which means, guess what? We're gonna have to put something back up. And, so we will work with the architect and the band to reestablish, a band tower.
So will that continue to be the most advantageous location for them to have it?
Yes, it will be for now. And also, we think we'll be able to actually put it inside of that baseball fence, which will, because we need all that space in the traffic flow. But, you know, these band towers, you know, we can't just go in there and throw something up. It's gotta be safe, it's gotta meet all the requirements for safety, and as you know, several years ago, there was actually an accident on the college campus, somebody up filming practice football, I think Notre Dame, winds get up, so we gotta make sure, actually what they're gonna wind up with is probably something way better and nicer than what they have. I'm sure it'll cost a lot more than whoever put the one they have up now, but with the architects and the laws in Alabama related to all that, it's just something we're gonna have to do. So, but we have been working with Mr. Ward on that, the location and all that kind of stuff. He's actually, he of course sharing designs and talking about all that. So we'll be able to nail that down. Just warning you right now, it's, you know, gonna be more than a couple $1,000 to put the band tower. That's just my thoughts, but it's gonna have to be done. Replacing lighting at Pelham High School on the baseball field is something else on our list. I know if you ride by there right now, the lighting seems pretty good. They've got it turned on, but I think the issue is they're having to replace so many bulbs every year that they feel like if we go to the better bulbing that's out there now, I don't think it's the LED, I think it's something else. But anyway, there's a better bulb out there that's a magic bulb that has more energy efficient and doesn't go out and all this kind of stuff. So that's what they're wanting to install. Landscaping, this will go around with the appearance of that school. There's lots of areas I've identified. Plus, honestly, y'all, there's a lot of dead trees and trees that are leaning on that campus that, if you go that road, lots of trees overgrowing the road, we probably need to go in there and contract and get, the trees trimmed back. We need to get some dead trees out of there, some leaning trees. There are a couple of things I've noticed that if we're going to improve that campus, I think from a, not only an appearance, but also from a safety perspective, I think that we need to take care of.
Is this something that our current landscape can take care of?
No, I think these are some pretty big, some of these are, I mean, we can check, there are lots of things that landscapers could do, like the small little tree that's dead is in the, but, the major tree that's leaning over the parking lot that's been there for 100 years will probably require a tree surgeon or something. But we'll explore all of that. These are all good questions and things that we can explore, and there may be better ways. I'm just telling you everything that's in our head right now, things that need to be done. Interior improvements at Pelham High School, there are specifically in the old wing of the school, which is, I get confused, wings B and C.
B and C.
B and C is the older wings, A and D are the newer wings, but basically going into those, and the most publicly used restrooms over there are in these older wings because they're around the auditorium and the gym and those kinds of things. And so we really need to go in there and update and renovate those things. The counselor suite, bathrooms and showers, some of the athletic facilities in that school are just old. And so we need to go spruce them up. I think we've got most of the keying, we've been working on keying upgrades so that the school officials have a master key for everything. Well, now they've got, there's 4 different wings at that school that have been built on at different times, and every time there's a different key. And so over the last few years, we've constantly been updating that and getting everything on the same keying system. So that needs to continue. As we move some of the parking and requiring our traffic flow, more parking on those bottom lots, probably some surveillance has been requested. Here's some, a couple of these things we've been talking about a long time, but honestly, we've always had other areas that we felt were more pressing, but it's, we're looking at our money, looking at our projects, these are reappearing back on our list, and that's the stadium railing at the high school. You can have varying opinions on this. You can go to, there are no railings to grab as you go up and down the stands at the stadium. I will tell you right now, you can go to Auburn University or Alabama or any major colleges, and you can go to a football stadium and walk up and down stairs where you don't have railings. But the difference are people are paying for high dollar for those tickets, and they know whether or not they can go up and down those stairs. At Pelham High School, you've got grandma and grandpa that want to come watch their kid play in the band or play on the football team. And, I'll tell you, I'm very careful when I walk. I don't get in too big a hurry when I'm going up and down those steps. It's a steep thing. You got to be very careful. And so that is something that we've talked about. We had an estimate done on that a couple of years ago. Not only that, we're making some other improvements to areas, and we had an estimate of like $384,000. And it is not as simple as just putting railing in. Anytime you upgrade it, you have to meet all the ADA requirements. Everything has to be brought up to code. You can't just put railing where you think you need to put it. It goes through the state, and they say, no, you have to have railing. You have to bring everything up just like they want it. So we've had lots of conversations about that I have put it on the list. Yes.
Just a question. I wonder, as you look at these items, I mean, that's the second highest amount, on this list, I think. I wonder if there's a way to strike a happy medium. If it would be possible to have a section in the state that had railings. So the people that didn't feel comfortable, maybe a little bit further along in age, they would know about that section rather than having to do the entire.
Understand, we can ask again, but, my dealings with the state building commission and all those things, they did pass something last legislative session that may give us a little bit of a break. So we will start with all of these, check to see if there are better ways to do that. I mean, even if you just did the railing in the lower section, right? That way, if you need railing, if you're the type of person that needs to grab the rail every step, you're probably not going all the way to the top. Maybe you are, but if you could just do the bottom section and leave the top section. But my understanding of the state building commission, those rules is they've not allowed that, but we can certainly try to trim some of that cost, and we can certainly look at that. We've done that before, but that was several years ago. We'll give it another shot.
The problem is not the railing. I mean, we're gonna go in there, and we're actually gonna cut out pieces of concrete and widen the aisles.
Yes.
I mean, it would be probably half that if all we had to do was just put railings.
Right, because the stepping stones aren't, you put a railing, now your stepping stones aren't wide enough, so now you gotta go create wider steps and all that kind of stuff.
But I do know that there are stadiums in the state where those railings are all the way to one side, right next to the seats. I don't know how they are on code or what it is, but
we can ask. Okay, as we reverse that flow, and of course, it's always been this way, but there's going to be more traffic. It has always been, it's been a request for a long time about how can we enclose the back of the stadium so that people can't, that's more aesthetically pleasing and maybe help with storage and some other things. So I've got that on the list to study and to get pricing and see if our architect has some suggestions on what that might look like and how we might can do that. I've got a little bit of money on central office final projects, as we're almost finished here, but there are a few. This room right here was originally designed, you see those two offices over there that were enclosed, the original design was to wrap offices all around this. And just that midsection be a kind of a meeting, and our board meeting room was gonna be upstairs, and so we may still be playing with that. Also from a signage perspective, if long term, this is gonna be the board meeting room, just, better signage out front, out back. So we're still looking at, so I have a little bit of money in there, shouldn't be big. I don't know if we'll get to that, maybe another year away, but I was asked about that, so I've included it because we need to be thinking about it. At the bottom of this list, I also have buses, but those will not be any cost to us because of planning that we've done. We're able to do all that with fleet renewal, but we'll be purchasing 2 new buses this school year. And then we'll be doing a whole new 10 new buses for the 21-22 school year. Basically, our fleet, I think will be completely new at that point in time.
We'll have one bus that is just a special needs bus that won't be replaced. And we'll also have, I don't know if y'all know it or not, but we air condition our 13 model buses. When we start getting this last 10, we'll have air conditioned buses if they need to run on field trips and stuff like that. We will have to put it on our buses.
So every bus will be air conditioned at that time.
Everything except maybe 2 or 3 spares.
Right. I'm going to guess and make a statement that we may be the only school system that has the entire fleet of air
I
conditioning
think we'll be
buses.
real close.
Now, I may be wrong about that. So I'm not gonna brag yet, but check on that. So we can brag about that. But so now TJ, half the, TJ gets big Christmas turkeys every Christmas from the bus drivers because they want an air conditioned bus. And so I'm kidding. But, it's kind of tough when who gets the air conditioned bus and who doesn't. But, we talked about that before. Driving on 31 and being stuck in traffic when it's 95 degrees outside, it makes a difference. So y'all, that is everything. So we had budgeted 1.9 million. By the way, if we do all those things based on my cost estimates, we're going to need a little more. You see negative 500 and something. So we would have to go into those reserves up there to finish all those projects. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna do that or not. I'm just saying now, we're gonna start getting with an architect, looking at all these different scenarios and trying to bring y'all real projects and real estimates so we can begin to hammer this out.
And then get all those air conditioned buses, which is an awesome idea. Do we have any ideas how it would affect our operational costs of those buses?
Yeah, it will go up.
Yeah.
It has gone up, so the mileage on a bus that's air conditioned versus one that's not is what, TJ?
About 5 miles an hour less if we're running air conditioning.
So it absolutely, but remember, and, you know, Saria came to me 3 times probably, because this is the first year. She and I have been doing our jobs for 15 years or so, and neither one of us, this is my 3rd system, you work in 3 systems, maybe Saria does, so neither one of us have ever had a transportation budget where we actually came in and didn't have to go get local money to cover our transportation budget. Now, we think, so we sit there and said, that can't be right, that can't be right, you know, neither one of us have ever done that. So the cost of fuel does go up with air conditioned buses, but because we have such a new fleet, we think it has dramatically reduced our maintenance costs. Am I misspeaking about that? So they're shaking their head, yes, they agree with that. So, you know, yes, your fuel costs go up, but our maintenance costs have gone way down. And so maybe those have balanced out. But we're in a pretty good spot with the state transportation budget. You know, about 6 or 7, when we first got here, we made a one-time investment with local funds to pay for some buses. That really got us ahead of the curve. So we've got it mapped out, I think, for the next 20 years. This board's done a huge favor for future boards. Transportation and buying buses shouldn't be a huge issue. They should be able to maintain a schedule and keep pretty good buses. So that is the projects list. Again, if you go home tonight and say, darn, I wish I thought about this or that related to things that you would like to see included. Of course, we share this with our administrators as well to make sure that we're not missing anything at the schools. We're blessed because our 2 elementary, I know Oaks is not brand new, but our elementary schools are relatively brand new and in good shape, so is our middle school. So we're seeing a lot of these funds looking at the high school because that's where we have the older building. Any questions about any of those things? Okay, I think that's everything that I wanted to go over with the board tonight. Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Cofield, appreciate that. Let's move on to the next part of tonight's meeting, which is the recognitions of the public. It is a policy of the board to conduct all of our meetings in full view of the public and welcome the participation of the public. The board encourages citizens of our community to appear and bring the board to any matter that they deem important, that they could be something that can improve our school district. Any delegation or individual that wishes to appear before the board shall come forward during this time. And we ask you just to follow very simple guidelines. We'd like your comments to be limited to 5 minutes in length. Those wishing to address the board, we would like you to come to the podium, which is to my left, to your right, and state your name at the beginning of your presentation. We also ask that comments will be limited to issues and not deal with individual personnel. And we'd like all comments to be in good taste as befitting the occasion and the dignity of a board meeting. So with that in mind, if there are people that wish to address the board tonight, now's the time to come forward and do so. State your name, sir.
My name is Bob. Hello, my name is Rick. My intent to speak tonight, as I did in the last council meeting, I did not write out anything to say, but I wanted to come up tonight. Immensely thank you. This has been a long, strange trip. As you guys all know, officially, this started, the effort started in 2013. You know, we started in 2012, and most of you know that it started in 2006. what you guys have done for this highly paid positions that you're in. We've had a lot of successes. We all knew there were gonna be roadblocks, we knew there were gonna be pitfalls and bumps to get through. We've been, all had to go through those, but the list of accomplishments have also been stunning. And thinking about some of the things that have happened over the last 7 years, somewhat amazing. Okay, you think about the groundbreakings and the ribbon cuttings, the additions at the schools. It's, it warms my heart in a lot of ways. A lot of work still to do, and you guys know that. I know you know that as well as anybody, and I appreciate what you're doing to get that done. Rick, I appreciate you bringing up the turf field potentially at the middle school. You know, that was one of the original conversations that we had when we were talking about that, and as I turn around to two of the newly elected council members, you'll know I pushed for that pretty hard, and that was going to be something that we all put up to help with. And again, I appreciate you bringing it up because I think it would be a great help to the city center, not just to the schools. So it's a great opportunity for that. And going back and looking at what we can do to partner on that, I think it's a great thing. One thing that I will say that bothers me, and this is not a school issue, this is a city issue with the schools, 31 to 33 connector. For those of you who've been attending council meetings recently, you know that I continue to fight for that, and I'll continue to lobby for that with the new council. It's a very expensive undertaking, but you also know we talked about doing the schools the way we did. It was a kind of a cornerstone, making it all work and putting it together. So I will say tonight that I hope that the schools, I hope the city will continue to work together. You guys will continue to lobby and find a way to make that happen. So I could probably ramble on. You guys have heard me do it many times, so I'm going to be short tonight. But again, it is a big deal for me as I leave office to see what has happened with our system and where we can go from here. I remember the first tour. I used to look around over and say, the first tour of this building with Ames and with Rick and Scott, and I suggested we convert this over to a central office and we get to build a new library. This building is fantastic. What you guys have done with it is very impressive. And I want to say thanks for the effort on that. And I will close with that. Facilities that we've got have taken us to another level. As we continue on down the path, keep working, keep doing everything you can. Thank you for all you have done.
Thank you, Rick. That's much appreciated. Anyone else wish to make any comments tonight? All right, there being none, that brings us to board comments. Floor is open. See a lot of smiles. Anybody? Well, I have a couple. If there's nothing else. I go back to the beginning of the meeting, our ranking in the top 12 in the state of Alabama. And I, of course, kind of went back as Rick was talking about the infancy of this, of the school system. We were talking before the meeting about where we started in the boiler room. But the thing about it, our communication system was lights out. You could talk to anybody as quickly as you wanted to because they were about 3 feet away. And I think that it's important. And somebody said to me today in our meeting this morning, about I talk about our teachers, and I guess I do. I think that our community and our board in particular, it's not wrong to say thank you to our community, to our teachers, to the superintendent, to administrators, for the work that has been done to get us to this point. Now, we're still a long way away from where we want to be. I think we all know that. But to get to where we are, I think took effort that's much beyond what you normally get. I mean, it may not be the best way to put it. And I think the board wants to thank you. And it's important that you know that. And the strides that we are making is is something that should be recognized, and that's what I'm trying to do tonight. So I wanted to mention that. You know, the response in our schools to the COVID numbers, I sent Dr. Cofield a note earlier this week. I said, these numbers look pretty good, are they? And they are, and I think it's because that, again, our people have, the thing I know about our people is they have done a tremendous job of not being deterred and of being flexible and changing on a dime. And I think that one of the results of that is our numbers to this point have remained low. And I think it's important to recognize that. I want to say a word, and I'm going to talk particularly about one member of our faculty. It could be a lot of other people, but as a lot of people know, I spent a little time around the football field. You know, our football team, they're the region champs this year. And I really believe that in our head football coach, we have someone that is one of the best teachers of young people I've ever been around. And I think that's very important. He's not the only one. I mean, we have you can go into a lot of classrooms and see magic every day. All right. But I just want to talk about this gentleman just for a second, because I know how hard his job has been. Because as a high school coach, you deal the hand that has been dealt to you. And the hand that he had for his first 3 years here was nothing but twos and jokers. And he had no winning hands at all. I can remember going to one of his very first games and looking out there and seeing our kickoff return unit, and about half the guys out there, you couldn't tell what number that was on the back of the jerseys, because half of the numbers tucked down in their pants, because they were 9th graders and young kids and little fellows that we were forced to play with because our school had gotten our zone. And when Coach Causey came in here, he never wavered, never backed up, never blinked. And I just think that it's, again, important for us to recognize just the character of the man and his willingness to stay at it and stay at it and stay at it. And of course, I mean, you know, we're not where we want to be in that program either. We want to win a state championship every year. All right. But to go from where we have been and the way that he has done it, which to me is a lot more important than the results. The way you do it speaks everything. He is an amazing mentor for young people. And I just wanted to say that about him tonight, since we've clinched the region championship. And it seemed like a good time to do that. Rick, I want to thank you for your comments. They're appreciated very, very much. I want to say we do have a couple of incoming council members here tonight. I think it's appropriate to say this. We want to be partners. We really do. It's pretty interesting that one of the first summer meetings that we went to, they had a little session at noon for the board presidents. And I sat at a table with 3 other guys. I think together they had about 70 years of board experience. And I asked one gentleman next to me from North Alabama, I said, "You got any advice for me?" He said, "Yeah, stay away as far away from your city government as you possibly can." And that was kind of the prevailing notion from the people at the table. But you know, we've never taken that approach here. I mean, we want to be partners with you. You know, we're going to stay what's on our mind, expect you to do the same, and know that sometimes we'll have different views as to how to go about things. But for Pelham to be what it needs to be, we need to work together. We want to do that very, very badly. So those are the kind of things that came to my mind as the meeting was going on. I wanted to share them. So I did. Anything else? Anybody has? I should announce that we do have our next meeting is November 16th. It'll be earlier because of the Thanksgiving holidays. We'll have a work session and fall celebrations at 9 a.m. will be our work session, and that will be at Pelham High School. And then our regular scheduled meeting that night will be at 6:30 p.m. at Pelham High School. And I think these are, you know, school board meetings at their best are a celebration, you know, of your kids and your systems and your community. And I think these have the potential to do that in the next meeting. So hopefully everyone will come. All right. So with that out of the way, there's nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn in a second.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.